Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to the Stone Age Gamer Podcast. My name is Chris. I am your host, as usual, and with me tonight are Dan, the Wrestling Rhino, Ryan.
Yeah, let's go with that. I like it.
Tiff, the Tough Pterodactyl.
Oh, what? Sure.
Caw, motherfucker.
And Dean, the Dilapidated Dingo DeFalco. What the hell was that?
That was his dilapidated dingo.
Oh, God. What have I done?
Oh, things are off to an interesting start here this week.
God, they certainly are. So, we're back. We're here. It is a fine Friday night. It's the first day of spring, right? Or the last day of winter. I can't remember what it is, but winter...
It's the first day of spring, and it snowed like 3 inches.
Yeah, winter decided, nah, here, take this before I go. So that was a fun, squishy, wet day.
Yeah, it's winter.
It's winter. Sprinter.
Yeah.
The sprinter.
Yeah, sprinter.
Yeah.
Oh, Phineas and Ferb said sprinter.
Because that was summer and winter.
Oh. I didn't pay that
104
much
days
attention.
of summer vacation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Talking about swim.
So what we're going to talk about today is video games that we feel need sequels that are either have lapsed for years and years and years, or not that many years, just things that need new iterations in their respective universes. And we're each going to pick 2, so we're going to do a quick round, we'll take a break, we'll do a second round. Video games are unique in that sequels are typically anticipated as opposed to other forms of media where they announce a sequel to a movie and a lot of times people are like, I don't know if that's going to be very good. And you get stuff like Anchorman 2 or Dumb and Dumber 2, things like that. But in video games, you see things like Metroid and then you see Super Metroid, or you see Zelda 2 and then Zelda: Link to the Past, or even something like Halo and then Halo 2. Typically speaking, in video games, sequels are a good thing, which I'm pretty sure as an entertainment medium, that's a fairly unique thing, because, I don't know, I don't think Reload was any better than Load, but, you know, you don't really see sequels to albums turn out all that great. And
A Metallica reference, Chris?
it was the only sequel album I could think of. God, Use Your Illusion 2. How did I not come up with that one first?
Seriously, or what's the Meatloaf one? There was Bat Out of Hell and then...
Back into hell or some nonsense.
Another Bat Out of Hell, I think, like...
All the bats! Look at all these bats!
They're all in hell.
Steve,
and
my
they're all
friend that I
leaving.
So many bats! Hell is like fresh out of bats.
Well, anyway, that's the point that I'm trying to make.
The chicken in the cave.
Is that
Didn't he just say that Anchorman 2 is terrible?
No, I think we just said it existed.
we did. So, yeah, sequels in video games.
Anywho.
Typically a good thing. Not always a good thing, but typically speaking a good thing. So, we're going to do our little round and discuss what we think deserves sequels the most. So why don't we start off tonight with last week's champion, Dean.
Sonic the Hedgehog.
Really, dude?
No.
Call of Duty.
Yes.
What, you mean Sonic Boom specifically, right? Because
Yeah,
it's so
I
good.
got one for you, Dean. I got one for you.
Don't fucking
Rain-
say it.
Rainbow 7.
Oh. Okay, yeah, fine. Rainbow Six. I thought you were going to say something else.
Oh, like Bubsy?
Shut
Or Panzer Dragoon.
That one actually does need a sequel. But that's not on my list.
That's actually a valid point, but that's what I was still trying to speak fun of him.
highly considered that one, but yes. Anyway, Dean.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Let's. I'll start with the older one first. I wanted to talk about Vectorman, which was out for the Sega Mega Drive and Sega Genesis. Vectorman was a platformer action game about a crazy ass robot called an Orbot that was trying to prevent a rogue robot from destroying humans who were coming back to Earth after They polluted it, and they were waiting for everything to be cleaned up. So basically, it's like Mega Man, pretty much. Mega Man with really fancy graphics, I would have to say. It's a really cool game. It sort of, I would say, loosely interprets that Donkey Kong graphical feel. Very fluid looking and everything. Really, really cool to watch. And I mean, the first one was a huge commercial success. I believe it was one of the top games when it came out, which I believe was 1995. To be honest, I mean, you've probably played stuff like it before. If you haven't played the game itself, it's out on the Virtual Console and I believe on some mobile platforms, and has been released for multiple Sega collections because there's so fucking many of them. The reason I want to see another game was because the concept was really cool and the character itself was neat. I mean, if anyone's played it, he had a very fluid movement to him. He was just basically a bunch of spheres put together with some feet and a cannon on his arm. And back then, you didn't really see a lot of things like that, especially on the Genesis, that had that sort of fluid movement to him. So it made for a really unique experience, which you didn't see too often, again, on the Sega Genesis or Mega Drive. Again, very close to how Donkey Kong sort of moved very fluidly. So, yeah, I mean, I'd love to see something else like this. They did a Vectorman 2, which wasn't really as good. It was basically Starship Troopers with Vectorman. So, yeah.
That sounds awesome.
Well, yeah, but it didn't have Johnny Rico. So, yeah, I mean,
wow.
There was none of that. There was none of the good stuff to Starship Troopers. All it really had was the bugs. So, yeah, I think this deserves a new game. It would be really cool to see. I don't know who owns the property anymore, as I think Blue Sky Software is now out of business. I believe they closed in 2001. So I don't know if this is just in some sort of limbo of who owns this property or whatnot, but it would be really cool to see. I sort of would yearn for this, but we'll see what happens. No, he just sort of moved like that.
No, he's got like electromagnetic joints. Like he's like the new droid in Star Wars. He just kind of
he's got like
hovers together.
Yeah, he's got like rocket propulsors on his feet. So
yeah, I remember the double jump and that looking really cool. I seem to remember him moving almost like he was on some sort of skates, but I could be wrong.
Wouldn't doubt if they made a move like that. That's probably not out of the question. One of the cool things was that they did a play on words. The main character's name is Vectorman, and the bad guy's name before he turned into a bad guy was Raster, like Raster Graphics. So that's always kind of fun to note as well.
That's adorable. I remember shooting lots of TVs in that game.
Yeah, the first game was all about fighting robots that were taken over by the bad guy, which I believe he became a crazy robot called Warhead. So, yeah, incredibly original. So, yeah, that was the whole game. Shoot all the bad robots, take them out before the humans get back so they can colonize and make good for all the cleanup you did. So, yeah, it was a simple game, but I think it deserves a sequel because it was really fun to look at, and it would be cool to see if they could adapt that to something with today's technology. I think it would be really cool to see.
What are you thinking, 2D or 3D?
I mean, we have the ability to go 3D. I don't see why not. I mean, it would take a little bit more work to do that. They could always just, I guess, up-res the graphics and everything and make it look really, really pretty for a 2D platformer. But, I mean, the real challenge would be to make it 3D and make it stick. So I'd like to see a 3D one if they ever did do something with it. That would be the real challenge there.
The fluid dynamics of his connectivity would be really kind of awesome.
Well, I mean, they started making a 3D Vectorman for the PlayStation 2, which was then canceled. it didn't really look like him though. Like the character wasn't made of like little orbs and stuff. It just kind of looked like a big green robot. I guess it looked a little bit more like the box art Vectorman. You know what I mean? Like, of course, like on the box art for the first Vectorman, it was you still saw the orbs and stuff on his arms, but he had more of a weird face maskish thing to him. Than he looked really cool in the game and on the cover of Vectorman 2, but in the what's it on the PS2 version that was canceled, he just kind of looks like a generic robot, almost like slightly Master Chief-ish. But he did look totally awesome in the Sonic and Sega All-Star Racing game that he was in.
Yeah, it was cool.
Yeah, he looked totally awesome in there. But yeah, Vectorman, good choice. That would be a really, really cool cool sequel to see. I would love to see that.
Me too.
I wonder how similar it would be. It's not a game that I've played, and I don't think you guys have either. But it was one of the PS4 launch titles, Knack, where you're like you kind of make yourself a bigger robot out of like junk and shit.
Oh yeah, I've seen a lot on that.
It seems like it might be like a newer Vectorman might be something similar in look to that of, you know, like adding parts to it and all. Like it could be a really, really cool thing.
Yeah, I best hopes. I don't think we're gonna see anything, unfortunately, but you know, we can keep our fingers crossed, right?
Yeah, I've said it before and I'll say it again. Duke Nukem Forever is on store shelves. Anything is possible.
All right, let's get the show on the fucking road. I don't got anything else to say.
Okay then. Well, Tiff, you seemed really excited to go. What is what is your first game?
I'm gonna play the obvious card for the first round and go with Psychonauts. I know that's typically a first choice in most lists when talking about hotly anticipated sequels, but in my case, I just very personally feel very strongly that this needs a goddamn sequel already. Aside from the fact that it's just a really quality game and was totally unique and just quality, and I want to play some more of it. I feel like it's a big misstep on the part of Tim Schafer and Double Fine that it hasn't happened yet. I mean, when he came out at E3 and was like, "We're here to announce a 3D upscale or an HD upscale of a hotly wanted title, and everybody's super excited, and it's Day of the Tentacle," and everyone went, "Oh, huh? What? Okay, yay, Day of the Tentacle, I guess, but where the hell is our Psychonauts?" Like, I don't feel like that's any big mystery. I feel like everyone has pretty much been clamoring for it for a really long time now. And this year being the 10th anniversary since it came out, I kind of feel like now is the time. And at this point, I would even just take an upscale. Like, I really want a sequel, but I mean, I'd go out and pay full price for an upscale at this point. And I don't feel like I'm alone in that situation. And I don't feel like any of us have kept that a secret that we would do that. So, I'm really kind of pissed that it hasn't happened yet. It's just really bad business decisions.
There's got to be some more reason than just they don't.
There's really not. Everyone involved has come out and been like, "Yeah, we totally want to do this." Yeah, we're just not gonna.
I bet that game's gonna come out the same year that Beyond Good and Evil 2 comes out. It's just gonna be one of those games that everybody involved in the project clearly wants. Everybody who played the original clearly wants, and it's gonna happen when it happens.
You know what I think it is? I think that Tim Schafer was really butthurt by the financial success that Psychonauts did not enjoy. I think that really kind of shook his confidence, and it's been so like it's been such a hot topic kind of ever since then. I almost wonder if he's got like some George R.R. Martin syndrome and he's not putting it out because he's like afraid. Like, can I even possibly live up to this? You know what I mean? Like, it's gotta be something like that because everyone involved has said, yes, we want to do it. Yes, we like the property. No, there's no problems in the way. And yes, we understand that everybody wants it. But we're just not doing it because Day of the Tentacle.
We kind of talked about it earlier today too, of like, of Psychonauts and then Brutal Legend sort of being
Brutal Legend is getting a sequel. Brutal
Probably.
Legend. No, no, it is announced. They are doing a Brutal Legend sequel and not a Psychonauts one.
But
How
where,
stupid is
I
that?
seem to remember Brutal Legend also not being financially
Well,
viable.
It really wasn't
that's
great.
the thing. We were saying that like these games were kind of like his Pinkerton, where Pinkerton came out and at
That's
the
a
time
Weezer reference, everybody.
everybody knows it's a Weezer reference.
Not necessarily.
When Pinkerton came out, people shat all over the album, and lo and behold, 10 years later, everybody's like, "Fucking Pinkerton's the best Weezer album," because it always has been the best Weezer album. And I remember
But
we were working in
At the
game
time,
stores
Rivers
at the
Cuomo
time,
lost his mind.
and you could get Psychonauts for $5 in like it was everybody had just cut their prices on it because nobody bought it. And it's such a shame because that game is so
It's
it is
brilliant.
so
It
incredibly
is masterfully brilliant.
well realized. Like that, playing through that game, you can tell that this was exactly the idea. This was the thing he was going for. And
Well,
it's
and everything
perfect.
Everything coalesces so beautifully in that game. The story with the quirky character design to the voice acting to the artwork to the music, it is just
to the emotional baggage.
I know, emotional baggage. Come on now.
Yeah,
Oh,
that was kind
It's-
of brilliant.
It is just brilliant. It is a perfectly realized little ball of amazing. And I suppose I could understand the trepidation there of what if I do this and it's not good? Or what if I do this and could it ever be good enough with the amount that it's been hyped up at this point? So I could understand maybe how he's feeling about that, but you know what? Life's tough, get a helmet. Give me my Psychonauts too.
You're Tim goddamn Schafer. You only make good games.
Brutal Legend was okay. I didn't
Yeah,
particularly
I didn't love Brutal
like
Legend.
the fact that he's making a second one above
let me
Psychonauts is a
clear this up. They are not making a sequel to Brutal Legend. They believed that they were going to be making a sequel to Brutal Legend, and they started putting work into it. And then EA told them that after the first one was a financial failure, that it was to be canceled. Nearest I can tell is that the last word on it was somewhere in 2013. He was in an interview saying that he would still be interested in doing a Brutal Legend sequel, but he would have to do like a crowdfunding sort of thing in order to do it as an indie developer because the EA does not want to touch it. So there is not an actual Brutal Legend sequel in the making.
Well, to even go off of that, first of all, Double Fine would be beyond stupid not to go for a Psychonauts 2. And number two, even if they wouldn't, crowdfund that shit, you're gonna get all of the monies in about 20 minutes.
You know, I
promise.
actually wouldn't be surprised if that's something that's going to happen in the not too distant future. Like, it looks like to me, just Tim Schafer is just running down ticking off the list of things that he wanted to do, and he's going back further. You know, this Grim Fandango HD, like Grim Fandango has a cult following, but I don't even think its cult following is as big as the one of Psychonauts.
I don't either.
So
I
that
don't
was
either,
probably
even a
just
little
something
bit.
that he was
Like
passionate about.
At this point, I want to start a Kickstarter to be like, give me all of the money, and I will hit Tim Schafer in the face with all of the money until he agrees to do this.
I think that it's going to come up as soon as he's done going through, like he's probably building up to something like this, because it's like you said before, he was probably pretty hurt that Psychonauts didn't take off the way that he wanted it to.
I get that. But you know what? This is the year, though. This is the 10th anniversary year. This was the year.
And it still will be at E3 this year.
Exactly.
No, that
it'll
doesn't
be,
count to just announce it. It should have been announced last year to come out this year. For the 10th anniversary, that would have been perfect. No upscaling Day of the Tentacle. Who gives a shit? Give me my frickin' Psychonauts.
It'll be out this year. He will come out on the E3 stage, make an announcement that Psychonauts 2 is already on your devices that you own,
Oh,
and it's
please.
a fucking puzzle game.
Oh,
the soundtrack by U2.
It'll be a gem swap puzzle game, and everyone will fucking just destroy.
He might get shot on stage if that happens.
By himself. He will actually then commit suicide live on stage. It's an Xbox One exclusive, everybody. Good night.
But like that, it's crazy that you even say that though, because if Tim Schafer comes out on stage this year at E3 and says Psychonauts 2, Xbox One exclusive, I just bought an Xbox One.
Yep. I would buy an Xbox One for that. And I have, like, negative interest in buying a Bone right now.
God, that would just hurt so much, because I would be...
It would really hurt. And I would buy it, and I would play the shit out of Psychonauts, and then I would return it. And be like, this shit busted. I don't even know.
The only way I'm okay with it is because I know that you can talk to the Xbox. So, like, if there is a feature in there where it could be like, Xbox, shame me for buying you, then I'd be okay with it.
Xbox, you suck.
I whisper to my Xbox.
Xbox, feel sadness.
Talk me into not putting you outside.
Oh, goddamn the Bone.
All right, to sum up, Psychonauts 2, goddammit.
Needs to happen.
Come on.
I think everybody on this planet is in agreement with you. Dan, you're up.
All right. So back long about, I don't know, 2003 or so. Well, it was probably like in 2002 that they announced it, that the Nintendo GameCube was going to be the home of the infamous Capcom 5.
Oh.
The Capcom 5 that ended up being the Capcom
2.5?
3.25. And well, some of them came out on PlayStation as well, but we don't talk about that. And I don't even remember what the fuck the other ones were. Like, it was Resident Evil was one of them.
Resident Evil
Piano
4,
3.
product number 3, Viewtiful Joe, Dead Phoenix, which looked really cool.
Dead Phoenix did look cool.
It almost looked like a Legendary Wings sequel, which it probably was in some way, shape, or form. We never found out about it. And what the, Killer 7.
Oh, it was Killer 7. I thought Chaos Legion was in there somewhere too, but that maybe I'm.
Yeah, I think that was just another Capcom game that happened.
Yeah. So the Capcom exclusive GameCube 5 became not exclusive to GameCube. Resident Evil 4 came out, massive smash success. Killer 7 came out, really cool game that nobody bought.
Nobody cared about.
Because that game should have never been on a Nintendo system.
That game, but it didn't do any better on PS2. That game just doesn't have an audience outside of the 10 people that think it's amazing. Myself
amazing.
being one of them.
I'm one of the 10. Yeah, you and me, and there's 8 of us assholes that are like, no, Killer 7, you should play it.
Suda51, man, that guy's amazing.
He really is.
He's also batshit nuts.
That's why he's amazing.
Product number 3, which I know, Chris, you and I love to a deeply insane level.
I think we're the only ones, actually.
I think we are the only two that
us.
like that game. And then the Legendary Wings thing didn't come out, but the game that I want a sequel to is Viewtiful Joe. And I know that there were 3 sequels, technically, to the original Viewtiful Joe. There's Viewtiful Joe 2 that came out on GameCube and PS2, and then Red Hot Rumble that came out on, I think it was PSP at first, and then it went back onto the GameCube. And then there was a DS version of the game as well. But for those of you who have not played Viewtiful Joe, it is one of the most joyful experiences you can have playing a video game. It is incredibly gimmicky in its use of slow down time and speed up time. But the way that the gimmick is incorporated into the game is so perfect.
It's genius.
As you're playing through.
Genius.
It's simply brilliant. It is a game that is so good. It's like Johnny Depp's character in Once Upon a Time in Mexico, where he goes and kills the chef of the guy who makes the pork because he's like, fuck you, a pork shouldn't be this good. Right? This game is sort of like that. It's so perfect and so well done. The graphics at the time were so incredibly beautiful to look at. They're cel-shaded 3D graphics that operate on a 2D plane. The story is just bananas insane. You're just a dude named Joe who really likes fucking superhero movies, and you end up in a fucking superhero movie, and there's crazy robot bosses, and you get weird powers, and it's just, everything was incorporated so nicely. And the reason that I want a sequel to this game now is it seems like the type of game that if it was put out for $15 as a digital download, it would break all of the records. The way that game could look on a modern system with modern technology, and really, my dislike of the Xbox console as a whole aside, if you put this out on a PS4 or a Wii U, the way that you could incorporate the touchpads that both of those systems have into the gameplay itself, the kind of clever uses that could be come up with that, it needs to happen. It is a thing that makes too much goddamn sense. It would look stunningly beautiful to take that style of game with the really heavy black outlines on the really colorful characters and the way that it moved and just the overall mania that was that game. To put that now on a modern system in 1080p is a thing that I need in my life.
I could not possibly agree with you more. Did you play the DS game by any chance?
I did not, because quite honestly, I didn't even know it existed, which makes me a bad video game fan. But there was a time where I was broke quite a bit and was like, video games, that's a thing I don't do anymore. So,
well, the DS one is a proof of concept for what you're talking about with the touchscreen things, because it was an early DS game. It was original DS, so the graphics weren't quite on par with the console. The game's got its problems, but the way they incorporated the touchscreen mechanics in it were really clever. Like, they did things like cutting the film and doing that kind of thing. Like, they played with the way that the way that all the powers were related to film and movies. They played with that in some really clever ways. And to see them take ideas from that game and incorporate the soul of the first game would just be mind-blowing, because this game suffered from Capcom being Capcom. Like, the first game was a runaway success, and they were like, cool, put it on PlayStation 2, cool, let's make all the sequels. And they just farted out sequel after sequel really fast. Like, these games, the Red Hot Rumble and I think it was Double Trouble or whatever it was for DS, and Viewtiful Joe 2, they came out rapid fire, just like Mega Man sequels. And there was an anime that was airing in Japan or whatever. They went gung-ho on it, and they burned the series out, and they did it fast. And I think that's what happened to it. I think that's why we didn't get any sequels past that, because they were like, cool, we're just going to keep cranking these out every year, and this will be the new Mega Man. And then it wasn't, and then they just kind of left it. Like, oh, well, this is no longer viable. We're not going to make these games anymore. And it's such a shame, and I would love to see exactly what you're talking about. And you're right, PlayStation 4 or Wii U would be a perfect home for this game. I mean, just seeing Viewtiful Joe in Marvel vs. Capcom 3 and Tatsunoko vs. Capcom was just a huge...
Oh, it was awesome.
Giant smiley face for me. But, God, just that little HMD shirt that he wears. I had a blue t-shirt with that on it for the longest time that I loved wearing. This game took over my life when it came out. I loved the first Viewtiful Joe. I didn't get into the sequels as much. I bought them. I didn't buy Red Hot Rumble because I was like, why do we need a Smash Brothers style game with Viewtiful Joe characters in it? But
yeah, no,
it just didn't make sense to me. But the DS game I bought because I thought it was really clever, and I bought the sequel because I loved the first game so much. Why wouldn't I buy the sequel? But it felt very samey to me, so I didn't really give it as much of a chance as I should have. And I bet if I went back to it now, I'd probably appreciate it more. But
it is really good. But it's Viewtiful Joe is one of those games too, though, where like a lot of people did not play it because looking at the cover and then, like picking that up in a game store, looking at the cover, it's like, all right, this looks sort of interesting. Looking at the back, the box description, as they normally are, was not very good. It didn't do a good job of explaining how cool it would be to actually play this game. It looks really weird in screenshots. Viewtiful Joe is a game, though, that as soon as you sit somebody down and you're like, no, take this fucking Wavebird, sit your ass down, and play the shit out of this game for like 10 minutes. Nobody doesn't like that game.
As soon as somebody sees slow and you do those crazy slow motion combos and launch them into the air, so as soon as you see that, or as soon as you are doing that with a controller and it looks so unbelievably cool, it's it's over. You can't not love it. It's just too much fun. The game's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, and
it needs to be a new one.
And right from that first stage, like at the end, after you beat the first little boss, and there is the first like little mini boss in the stage, and a slot machine pops up, and you punch the slot machine a few times, and you're like, what the fuck? I can't do this. This is bullshit. And then you hit the slow down button, and you can actually time when you hit the slot machine, and you're like, oh, I get it. That's clever. It works. It's brilliant. God, just please, Capcom, fucking please. I know, like, you're pissing off all your creators and shit, and, like, KJ Inafune left, and, like, fucking everybody else is leaving, too, whose names I can't remember right now. But fucking just, come on. Make this game. It needs to happen.
Capcom should make some games at this point.
Do they even make games anymore, other than, like, just shitty Resident Evil sequels and reboots?
Yeah, not really. It
look,
just says Resident Evil
we put
games.
out the first Resident Evil again.
They
Buy it.
reluctantly put out some great Phoenix Wright games, but it seems almost against their will. It's
I bought Resident Evil, the new one.
Is it good, by the way, as an aside?
It's Resident Evil. Actually, I'm not gonna lie.
Is it worth $20 though? Because at $10 I would have bought it. At $20 I have no interest.
They actually redid all the cutscenes, which I found impressive, and they added some cutscenes.
That actually kind of bums me out.
Which was cool.
I like the Master of Unlocking.
I understand. They took out all the weird, like, fucking B-rated horror movie shit. And
it's just an up-res of the GameCube version, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, it's supposed to be just it's an HD remake of the Resident Evil remake for GameCube.
Well, it looks good.
We've hit the Inception level of gaming. It's the up-res of the up-res.
I was astonished when they said that, because all right, yeah, we're gonna redo Resident Evil again. I'm like, oh, cool, I guess, sure, why not remake the first one again? But it's not even like a full remake. It's the framework from the GameCube game. It's still the CG backdrops that your character's running over, isn't it? Like,
we're gonna remake it as a gem swap.
It's just a.
I want everything to be remade as a gem swap, just to fucking piss off the internet.
Oh god, I'm just imagining like you're doing a gem swap game, Resident Evil themed, and then just randomly at points a dog jumps through one of the gems at the screen and scares the shit out of you.
Oh god, just combining the jump scares of Five Nights at Freddy's with the mind-numbing gameplay of fucking Candy Crush. Love everything. That actually sounds really fucking awesome.
That does, actually. Somebody needs to get on that. Hey, Capcom, you're not up to anything.
Hey, Capcom, you're not making anything other than Resident Evil games.
Can you stop sucking balls, Capcom, and just do something good?
Just get back to
Seriously,
work, guys.
we love you. Like, we do. We did a whole episode about you and Konami, and we fucking loved you.
We did. We really did.
God damn it. Make it happen.
We fought for you.
Sake. Beautiful Joe. And Christ, if anybody listening has not played Viewtiful Joe, steal a GameCube from someone. Fucking find a way to play this game. Just it is. You will love it. There's no one who doesn't love it.
Remember, kids, stealing's bad. Don't steal a GameCube.
Yeah, they're for sale for like $30.
Yes, you can buy one.
Oh, steal one. Just fucking.
Dan, stop it. Stop it.
I'm sorry. Steal an N64 though, because
don't steal anything.
People charge way too much money for those garage sales. Bunch of bullshit.
Agreed.
Because they look on eBay and they see the bids on a troll one going for like $700, and they're like, oh, I could get that. Put my N64 out there for $700.
I'm gonna sell my purple N64 for $500.
Limited edition.
That's right.
They are limited
editions. Look, I drew Pikachu on
These things are really hard to find.
Ugh. Stop it.
Chris, don't feel the fire.
Those dumb, fantastic N64s are going to be the death of me someday. They're so pretty, and I have the boxes for all of them, but I don't have the damn consoles. Anyway, all right.
Chris, what's your game? Or your first game?
My first game is the 1989 NES classic, The Guardian Legend. I love this freaking game. It was published by Broderbund. It was made by Compile, who they're known for the Puyo Puyo series before Sega bought it. They were also partially involved in the development of Legacy of the Wizard, which is I think we did that on Chiptune Trivia once. It's a really, really cool and bizarre NES adventure game. And the cult NES Genesis classic Musha, which is like a shooter, action-y, robot-y type game, which apparently goes for a bunch of money these days. But Guardian Legend. Let's see, it's the sequel to a game called Gartic, which was an MSX shooter from like 1986, which I have never played because who in America has an MSX? But
Shout out to Banjo Guy Ali, big fan of the MSX.
big fan of the MSX. Big fan of the MSX. This game is like a cross-genre type of experience. When you first turn it on, when you first start playing the game, it's a shooter, like a vertical shooter, like a Ikaruga or something.
Shmup.
Yeah, a shmup. You're a little spaceship, and you're blowing up asteroids, and then some weird fish creatures, and then you blow up a bunch of other things, and then it turns into The Legend of Zelda, and you're like, what the hell just happened? It becomes this top-view adventure game where you're learning things about the story from these derelict computers, and then you just start adventuring and finding keys and opening doors, and then you go back outside and you realize that your little dude, your dudette actually, your chick that you are playing in the game is the spaceship. She's not flying one, she transforms into one. And you just go back and forth between these two gameplay styles until you finish the game. And it's such a cool concept. It's got wonderful music, really decent visuals for the time, and just a really cool concept of having this cross-pollination between these two different types of gameplay, where it's half shmup, half adventure RPG, and it has a lot of those really cool elements that some of my favorite modern games incorporate, like the storytelling, like I said, was done through these derelict computers, very similar to the way the storytelling in Metroid Prime, where there's either no story if you don't read anything, or a ton of story if you scan and read all kinds of stuff. And that's how they tell the story, was through the environments. And that's kind of the way it worked in Guardian Legend to a much less extent. But tight controls, good graphics, amazing sound. I believe the company, Compile, went for bankruptcy, I think, in like early 2000s. And they recently resurged as a company called Compile Heart. And they recently got back the rights to all of their old properties except the Puyo series, which is still owned by Sega. So I can't find like a list of these are the properties that we own, but it stands to reason that Gartic, or and its sequel Guardian Legend, are now owned again by a company that is in existence, or at least has been in existence until 2006. So it's theoretically possible that it could happen someday, although seemingly less likely, considering the kinds of games that they make now are very simple kinds of games. But in the hands of a talented developer, this could be amazing on modern consoles.
Yeah, it's such a shame too, because I really like this game as well, and I'm a big fan of when games do that sort of hybrid gameplay style, sort of in the vein of, to pull from one of your favorites of Blaster Master. But more recently, there was a game somewhat similarly for Game Boy Advance called Sigma Star Saga.
Oh, yes, good game.
Which is a super cool game where you explore the world in a very traditional RPG type setting, except when you get into battles, instead of having the active time battle or whatever fantasy, RPG cliche battle system you want to use, it becomes a side-scrolling space shooter. And that's how you do the fucking battles. Like, it's this really cool kind of hybridization of two gameplay styles. And Guardian Legend is a game that just the idea that with a modern console and the power of a modern console, that you could have the transformation animation from overworld to space battle of your main character turning into this badass ship, like, that's worth it alone. That's a cool enough concept.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just imagining the kind of game where it plays out like a 3D Zelda, like one of the more modern Zelda titles where you're doing all this adventuring, and then when it comes time to do the spaceship battles, you just jump into the air, transform into a jet, and then you're playing Star Fox. Like, it could still be on rails just like a shmup, but they could do kind of like a behind the ship, on rails Star Fox style thing, and it could be amazing. There's so much potential for this.
Yeah, I'm in. That sounds awesome.
I'm only in unless they're Slippy.
Fuck that frog.
There's a new Star Fox
Like,
game where we get to blow him up. Hopefully.
All right. I've just purchased my first Star Fox game. Like I think a lot of the games that we're going to talk about, really, I mean, Psychonauts kind of notwithstanding, just because I want Tim Schafer to be successful. A lot of these games I think would fare much better in the hands of indie developers or at least younger teams as downloadable titles. Because Guardian Legend as a downloadable title, like that sounds kind of perfect for where indie games are at right now.
I would agree with that.
Agreed. Yeah, that could definitely turn into something, even if it went less 3D-ish and more, maybe even slightly more in the 2D realm with 3D graphics. But yeah, in smaller indie titles, similar, like that article that I just put up on the site about the ToeJam and Earl, Monster Boy, and Project Ukulele. These are, big name people that worked at big name companies have left those companies and are now doing the games they wanted to do. And
oh yeah, just like Mega Man.
Exactly.
Yeah.
With the
Keiji Inafune is doing Mighty Number 9, and Koji Igarashi left Konami and left Castlevania, and he's got a game that is apparently going to be a spiritual successor to Symphony of the Night. And breaking news as of today, according to various interweb sources, Hideo Kojima is leaving Konami after Metal Gear Solid 5 to go off on his own.
And he's just going to keep wearing sunglasses all the time.
As well he should, because that guy's a badass.
It's gonna be, I'm sure whatever he does is gonna be batshit crazy, but
Sunglasses Simulator.
And I'm really excited about this.
But yeah, that's that kind of stuff. And to say, like, ToeJam and Earl was kind of a bigger name back in the day, and Banjo-Kazooie was a huge name. Wonder Boy, not as big a name, but still, that the original creator is now off making a sequel to his series exactly the way he wants to do it as an indie developer. These kinds of games that we're talking about, some of them are a bit more niche. Like Guardian Legend is definitely a niche title, and I have high hopes for this Monster Boy game, and I think it's going to do well. And something like Guardian Legend could totally do well as well in the indie scene. Absolutely, I couldn't agree more. But things are going a little long, so we're going to take a quick break, and we're going to come back and read off our last four titles, and we'll call it a night. So stick around. And since we are running over on time and we all want to go to bed, we're going to do this a little bit more rapid fire. So, first up, Dean, give us what you got.
Well,
that's not rapid fire, Dean.
Well, fucking fine. I'll go faster. The game I wanted to talk about is Croc, Legend of the Gobbos, made by Fox Interactive and MediaQuest and THQ. Those are different systems respectively. Fox Interactive did all the PlayStation stuff, MediaQuest did the Sega Saturn, and THQ did the Game Boy Color. Game's okay. It was a platformer essentially. What really made it cool was you were in control of this Croc, and it was a collectathon. Collectathons were big back then, and to be honest, this one sort of stood out. It was really, really brightly colored. There were a bunch of different levels and everything, and the way to beat the game was you had to find the secrets to really get to the final end boss, like you would in Mario. Like if you get enough stars, you get to face the super awesome, amazing Bowser. Same sort of concept went into it. It's basically a crocodile finding these little fuzzy dudes named Gobbos that raised him as a little tiny baby crocodile, and he needs to save him because they're his family. And that's pretty much it. I mean, the concept is really simple. It's just a platforming collectathon, and at the time, it was impressive. It did things on the PlayStation that a lot of the other games really couldn't hack. And I mean, I like it. I wish they'd make another one. They did make a second one on the PlayStation, but it sort of went away from that collectathon sort of feel and went more towards like Crash Bandicoot, which I'm assuming was a big fad at the time because Crash Bandicoot was a little different than something like Mario. But there didn't need to be other games like that. They should have stuck to the original formula, and it would have worked. Sort of like what Toe Jam and Earl had the problem of doing. The first game was really awesome, then they kept changing the formula, and it just didn't work out. What's not broken shouldn't be fixed. You know, it doesn't need anything. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. So, yes, if they made a sequel that was true to this game, it would be awesome. Again, that's Croc Legends of the Gobbos. It's developed by Argonaut Software, which also had a hand in developing Star Fox, which was sort of cool. So, yeah, there's that. That's my game. Fuck you guys.
Went from a collectathon to a really questionable shoe wear choice.
Yeah.
Crocs. Oh, I see what you did there.
See what I did there? If you wear Crocs, you should be ashamed of yourself.
It's true.
Wow. Putting that right out there.
Yep.
It's funny you mentioned the Argonaut Software connection because the game started life as a Yoshi game, which is why Croc looks the way he does. And when Nintendo was like, "No, we don't want to do this. We're going to make Yoshi's story instead," they were like, "Fine, we're just going to make this game anyway." And they made Croc out of it. And it's pretty cool. But yeah, Croc.
We'll just give him some pointy teeth.
Exactly. We'll just make him actually carnivorous instead of something that just swallows everything with no teeth and probably the biggest murderer since Kirby. Ugh. Anyway. That got dark.
Genocidal fucks.
Croc could use a sequel. That would be totally cool. All right, Tiff, what's up with you?
My pick is, so I did my obvious one, and now I'm gonna go with my long shot. The game that I would most love to have a sequel is Eternal Darkness. We've talked about it before. It's one of my favorite games of all time. I love things that are unique and a little bit twisted, and Eternal Darkness just kind of hit on both of those. And there was talk for a long time, and even there were some Kickstarters, there was some motion, there was production going of a sequel that was, what was that, Shadows of the Eternals, I think?
Shadow of the Eternals, yeah.
Shadow of the Eternals. And then some funding fell through, and some people got arrested, and some kitties were violated, and all of that was pretty terrible. And and in all of that, I lost my damn sequel, and that makes me really sad, because as enjoyable as I found Eternal Darkness to be, and as creative and interesting and all that, I think on a current gen system, they could really, really knock it out of the park with some of the insanity features. And I know Shadow of the Eternals was going to have a slightly different, it was going to be like a perception thing, and not so much sanity, but still kind of along those screwing with you kind of ways, and I just think that you could really do some awesome stuff with that. Like, I see an Eternal Darkness sequel along the vein of like the new Lara Croft, and I think that could be really, really cool, and I think it would do really well. But unfortunately at this point, it's so wrapped up in pretty much everybody that had a hand in Eternal Darkness. Their career has gone horribly wrong. Companies have dissolved, people are in prison. I mean, it's just a terrible, terrible, terrible mess.
Well, and think about like all the cool stuff that could be done now. Like if you had an Xbox One version, it could fuck with your Kinect sensor.
Oh yeah.
Of like, Kinect has lost track of your motion. Please sit down or please stand up.
Or like it could switch you to watching TV on your Xbox.
I'm thinking
it could do all kinds of crazy stuff.
I'm thinking about like the because I believe the actual property Eternal Darkness, like the title. The IP is owned by Nintendo, and
right, because they were going to do some sort of a release with the Wii U until that all fell apart.
Yeah, but geez, could you imagine the kind of screwed up stuff they could do with the second screen? Like you're just playing the game, and all of a sudden you look down, and there's like a pair of eyes looking at you or something.
Face.
Yeah, like just.
Oh yeah, it would be awesome.
They could screw it.
Like if
that
something
thing's got
would
a camera
flash on
in
the
it
thing
too.
that says "Look down at your gamepad."
and like they could do all kinds of really screwed up
it
stuff
could be
with
really,
that.
really awesome.
They could really just nail it. No, I think what they do is just, I mean, Dennis Dyack is a lunatic. There's no question about that.
Sure.
But and
and
Too Human
he's the most
was,
stable person that is involved in this whole project.
It's true.
Just
I say they find another studio to start from scratch. I say get 100% fresh blood involved and say, because I think most developers have played this game by now. Because
sure. And
it's one of those cult following type things. And if Nintendo said we're going to like get N-Space or someone, just one of their multitude of companies that is apparently doing nothing right now, and say, you know what, I want you to go absolutely bug nuts crazy and make a new Eternal Darkness and just give it to some studio to really go nuts with. I would love to see what somebody else could do with that property, because the potential is
I think that would be awesome.
I want to see, now that he is leaving, give Eternal Darkness to Kojima and let him just lose his shit.
No, don't do that. Don't do that.
Would be the best.
Yeah, if you want to sit and look at it forever, like, give it...
I was going to say, if you want to watch a 6-hour movie with 3 QuickTime events in it.
Yeah, that sounds like a great plan. Like, yeah.
It does.
You know what? Consult with Kojima, because, like, moving the controller to controller port 2, looking on the back of the box, he's great at thinking out of the box.
The shit with, what was it, Psycho Mantis, you vibrate your controller across the floor.
Yeah.
I see you like Castlevania.
Yeah.
How do you know?
Consult with him, but don't let him actually make the game.
Well, and that'll actually do that, because if you play that on GameCube, it says I see you've played Eternal Darkness.
Yeah, because Psychonauts was involved in that port. So yeah, and that's.
But you'd have to get all of those batshit crazy people to agree to let it go for somebody else to do it, which there's just no way that it's gonna happen.
All right,
which makes me really sad.
It makes me sad too, but let's move this on.
All right, Dan, you're up.
In 2004 on the PS2, one of the most amazing fighting games came out. It was a 4-player fighting game, which means nobody ever fucking played a 4-player because you had to buy a goddamn adapter for it. But if they were to put it out now as a 4-player online battle, it would be just the fucking best. And I'm talking, of course, about a game that nobody else played besides me, called War of the Monsters.
I played it. That shit was awesome.
God, fucking War of the Monsters is so good. It is basically a love letter to every, like, cheesy sci-fi kaiju monster movie that you can imagine from, like, the 50s and 60s. There is a Godzilla analog. There is a King Kong analog. There are giant lava men. There's big robot monsters. There's dudes that look like there's the guy who looks like the Martian from Mars Attacks. You know, that guy. There's just all these crazy characters, and you're in a city and you just beat the shit out of each other, and you can destroy the city, which at the time on the PS2 was like this really incredible feat that Incognito was able to pull off, because destructible environments were not as commonplace as they are today.
That's still a thing now. When Injustice came out, it was like, partially destructible environment, isn't this amazing?
Like, yeah, I mean, so if you take the War of the Monsters concept, give me just super detailed kaiju fucking monsters, make it a 4-player online game where you can just destroy cities and knock over buildings, and it's a fucking $1 million idea, man. Like, it's just the game that you have to play. And it was one of those things that was very unique to the PlayStation 2 at that time, because you had Nintendo with your Super Smash Brothers, and that kind of scratches that particular itch for Nintendo fans or Nintendo owners. And PlayStation has tried to do the same thing with PlayStation All-Stars Battle Royale, which sucks. It's not a good game. It's just really not. There's a lot that's broken about it. When they already had the answer in War of the Monster. And unfortunately, like Incognito's other big game on the PS2, which was Downhill Domination, I think it was called, which was also a really awesome game, it just didn't sell very well. You know, I think a lot of that had to do with the fact that here you had a 4-player title that you needed to buy the multi-tap for, or whatever the hell it was called. So
Well, I mean, the other problem was the main competitor was all the Godzilla spin-offs that there were,
right, and you're right. There were a lot of Godzilla fighting games at that point too.
and that's the thing, you could either take what you know or something that, the gameplay in that was way better than any of the Godzilla games. It was so much faster and way more fluid. But unfortunately, I think people just related better with the Godzilla characters because they knew them already from the movies, and that sold.
Yeah, I think it was really a question of marketing. Like, it kind of came at the wrong time. But anybody that really got their hands on it, like, I remember the first time I played it, there were two things that really stuck out to me. Number one is that this is basically a new version of King of the Monsters for Neo Geo, which is
basically
essentially the same. It scratched the same itch. You giant monsters in a city, destroy everything, and beat the crap out of each other. But this one was just... It was very ground level. It was very visually impressive. The other thing that really stunned me about it was because the first time I played it was just 2-player because it was on a demo kiosk, and I thought the 2-player mode was perfectly awesome. And the way that it worked, where the camera went into split screen mode back and forth, kind of like the way the original Toe Jam and Earl does. It was just, It was brilliant because they didn't do the whole, like, it's always in split screen. Like, once you became in proximity to one another, you were on the same screen beating the shit out of one another. But if you wanted to do a tactical retreat and start chasing somebody, the game just instantly went split screen seamlessly, and you knew where you were, and you were just running around chasing each other and busting through buildings. And, God, that game was so cool.
It was just fun. Like, that was one of those games where it was like, there are some technical problems with the game, as a lot of the games of that era had. Like, the camera is good, and it does do a lot of really good things, but then there are some times where you're like, I can't fucking see anything.
Yeah, that definitely was a problem.
Why is this stuck over here? God damn it. But we've come so far past that. And I mean, we're talking in 2004, which, 10 years ago doesn't seem like that long of a time, but none of us had 50-inch flat screens 10 years ago. We had a 32-inch CRT TV, and you put that on a 50-inch now with 1080p graphics, and you're just, again, like, this is just a license to print money at this point. Those types of characters too are only becoming more popular as time goes on, as geek culture becomes more prolific. Those type of niche characters, like your King Kong fans or your Godzilla fans, or one of the robots in that game was basically a Manzinger Z clone. Like, your fans of these particular subsets of geek culture all had a champion to play as in this game. And like, this is another thing, like Viewtiful Joe, I just need this in my life.
All right, excellent. I again completely agree. I haven't disagreed with anybody's choices so far. Every single one of these games should totally get a sequel. But yeah, War of the Monsters, damn good stuff. All right, I will polish this off with the 1995 Sega Genesis infuriating classic Comix Zone. Holy crap, does this game need to be sequelized? There needs to be a new Comix Zone. Alright, so this was by STI, the Sega Technical Institute. It's a Western studio. They're the teams that brought us, like, Kid Chameleon, Sonic Spinball, The Ooze. You play as a comic book artist / rock and roll dude named Sketch Turner who has a pet rat named Roadkill. And he's drawn a comic called
God damn it, 1990s. Holy shit.
Seriously, so weird.
Could that be any more 90s? Did he have a rat tail?
He did. He had a big long ponytail and little sunglasses and
I think
finger
he had like
gloves.
a mullet too. Like, it was almost, he had the side of his head shaved, I believe.
He was just the most 90s character you could possibly imagine. But
Vest, shorts, sneakers.
Hold on.
Was great.
I gotta go get my choker and my Jinko jeans. And then we can keep talking about this.
So he's drawing a
God
comic
damn it,
book
I missed the 90s.
called The Comix Zone about, like, an alien invasion or whatever. Lightning strikes his comic book and brings the villain Mortis in his comic book to life, who then sticks Sketch Turner inside of the comic book world, and he has to fight his way out. And it's a very silly
That's so
concept.
Cool world.
It's a very cool world, but it's such the concept is silly, but the way the game is presented is stunning, because it's done like not even like a stage is a panel, like a stage is a page of a comic book, and you fight like within this one panel, and then you see the other panels elsewhere, and when you finish doing whatever needs to be done in this one panel, these arrows point to the different directions you can go, and he jumps over the white line between the panel into the next panel, and then you're in that area as if that panel is its own self-contained world. And like there's parts of the game where you'll like be beating up guys and you'll hit them so hard they'll actually rip through different panels. The narrating voice that's in your head, like she's talking to you via communication, but her head will show up in the corner like a meanwhile previously type thing, and that'll actually happen too. You'll go to the next panel and there's a little yellow box in the corner that says meanwhile in sub basement C or something like that. The whole presentation of it was so comic and done with such love of comic books. The other cool thing is that the villain Mortis draws enemies in front of you. So when you get to a new area, this hand will show up over the screen and just draw a new bad guy in front of you, and then it comes to life and starts beating the shit out of you. And it's all done on the Genesis, and it looks great as a Genesis game. But when you think about what you could do with this concept, if an indie developer or somebody got their hands on this product, this property, and made a new version of it, is astounding, because Comix Zone has two major flaws. Number one, it is psychotically hard, and I'm not talking Mega Man hard. It's like unfair hard, as in everything hurts your character. Like there's screens where you need to break blocks, and punching the blocks to break them takes life away. Like the game is
that's bullshit.
Exactly, it is bullshit hard.
It's broken.
Exactly, it's broken.
It's broken.
And it is a little on the short side. For the 4 people on the planet that have actually beaten the game without cheating devices. But, and I'm not one of them. I've never beaten this game. I'm nowhere near that good. But it has great fighting mechanics to it, and it's really well animated. Like you can do different moves, like augment your moves. You can roll, you can get different items, and you can use your little pet rat, who's awesome. Like you have him as an item, and you put him on the floor, and he'll like sniff around, and then he'll rip the comic book page and pull something from another page for you. Like, the possibilities are endless on this thing, and the fact that there's not a new one is just because this is Sega. They make sequels to just about everything, and they just let Comix Zone lie. They just let it sit there.
I don't know, they're on their 17th Yakuza game?
Yeah, well, those games, they sell like hotcakes in Japan for some odd reason. They're just bananas.
Choo Choo Rocket Crazy Taxi got more games than fucking Comix Zone has.
Oh, yeah.
Crazy Taxi.
Comix Zone
Crazy
just
Taxi.
had
one note as it gets.
Exactly.
Crazy Taxi is awesome. Don't hate on Crazy Taxi.
Crazy Taxi was great, but the fucking iteration after that was Crazy Taxi. Like, they just made the same goddamn game, and everybody went, oh, it's got a 2 after it. I'm gonna buy it.
We'll talk about
Dan,
that next week.
That's the thing. Not everyone thought Comix Zone was good. Everyone thought the first Crazy Taxi was a good game. There was no debating that. Comix Zone is incredibly difficult. And I mean, I remember playing that as a kid. It was fucking impossible. The concept was amazing,
impossible.
But can you beat
this is
it?
really
No.
cool. I'm looking at images of it, and like that's such a cool concept, but I can just tell from looking at screenshots of it that there's no way that I could have gotten through this game. The color saturation and the amount of shit on one single screen, like I'm looking at a still image and I'm getting dizzy. There's so much on the screen. I could see how this could be really, really
It works.
just like sensory overload.
Seeing it in motion, actually playing it is less confusing than it looks when you're looking at it. Like when you have the control over the character, it makes sense. It's just the punishing difficulty that really destroys it. Like you have to make a lot of blind jumps. There's really cheap deaths, like Ninja Gaiden style cheap deaths. It's ridiculous. It's over the top hard, but
No, I think you're absolutely
really
right,
cool,
though.
though.
I loved Comix Zone. This game, this was one of those games that made me sad I didn't own a Genesis. But like, you give this to the guys, Drinkbox Studios, who made Guacamelee.
oh
Like,
god,
that's the
yeah.
type of developer that
Them
I would love
or
to see
Way
out
Forward.
there.
Who
Or
did
Way-
who
yeah,
did
Way Forward.
SteamWorld Dig?
SteamWorld.
They had really nice
Crap.
like the artwork. I think could fit really nice with this.
But like, you give it to one of those guys. You put Rob Liefeld in charge of the art
Oh,
direction.
Jesus Christ! Why would you say that?
Podcast
Why would you say
over.
that? How are you supposed to move your character around if they don't have any feet?
Well, there won't be any
with no
dialogue
feet
because
and that many pouches, they would just. Everyone would be so weighed down with pouches. There's just
Pouches
no
and
way.
bulging pectoral muscles. Everybody's top heavy, falling over. Oh, it's the best game ever.
Plus, he doesn't know how to put fucking comic panels in order. Like, it would be so confusing.
Waddling around, fucking.
They'd all be wearing
Teeth
jeans.
grinding.
Every now and again, they would look towards the player and just go, "Kill me, kill me."
The guy would be 4 feet tall, turn the corner, be 8 feet tall. Look down at the guy next to him like, how did this happen? Is that a wall?
With an arm protruding straight through his chest for some reason. Both eyes are on the same side of his face. Like, he doesn't even know.
Flounder.
Big fan of the show, Rob Liefeld.
You know, if he ever shows up to any of the conventions we go to, he ever listens to anything we say, he's just gonna be like, "Fuck you guys." Fuck
You know what? The list.
Him and all fucking
the
80
list
million of his dollars.
of people who he has to be angry at this point is pretty high.
He gives a shit that I say he
Honestly,
can't draw. I can't fucking draw either, Rob. It's okay.
You know
you
what?
and me have that in common.
If that man has the balls to show his face at a convention anywhere, I gotta give him props for that, because I wouldn't if I was him.
I saw him at New York Comic Con like 3 years ago, and the line for
Holy
him
shit.
was around the fucking building. Like, there was a huge
Please
line.
tell me that most of it was ironic.
I don't know. I wasn't going to wait in that line to meet Rob Liefeld and have him sign something. Hell no. But
it was in New York, so it was probably a bunch of assholes from Williamsburg.
It's probably
popping
true.
Over with their mustaches and scarves.
people buy his comics.
I would just.
I don't know why.
I would stand in line and I would hand him a picture to sign, and I would have it be like a close-up, intricate anatomical drawing of a pair of feet.
I'm sure he gets that a lot.
Be like,
People have gone up to him.
sign this
at,
and commit it to memory, asshole.
Yeah, people have gone up to him at conventions with like how to draw books, and I'm like, that's pretty fucking rough.
That's ballsy.
And you
That's
know
what I'm saying. If he has the balls to show up to a convention, I will give you a high five for that, sir.
Yeah. Apparently he's a pretty nice
I'm still
guy.
pissed that you get like fucking paid
I'm sure he is.
to do what you do, but
Yeah, I don't understand how that man keeps getting work, but that was a tangent.
yeah.
I would now like to apologize, though, not to Rob Liefeld, because fuck you, draw feet, but to the people of Williamsburg and Brooklyn. I'm sure you're nice people. I'm just jealous. Your sweet mustaches and scarf. I don't want to offend any potential listeners.
Other than Rob Liefeld.
Well, yeah.
and his
Rob
legions of
Liefeld,
fans.
He listens every week.
I'm not
Well-
even gonna dignify that with a yes.
Yes.
But yes, I'm with you, Chris. Comix Zone is one of those games that is just begging. Like, it was too smart for the time that it came out. Like, that was one of those games, much I feel like the E.T. game on Atari, where what they wanted to do was so advanced that the
Far
system
outstripped
just,
the capability.
it just couldn't handle it.
I don't
You know
think
what I
that was
mean?
the problem with E.T., dude.
You don't think so? I think it might have been. That's the only explanation I can come up with.
I'm pretty sure that the Harold, what's that, Harold Scott Warsaw, I think his name, I never pronounced his name right. I'm pretty sure he sat down and said, well, I've got a week to do this. I can make it so that I press a button and it makes a fart noise. Done.
Done.
Here's some trees, here's a hole, think that looks like a phone. Ship it.
But, you know, like, there's... I feel like there was a lot of games that actually got a chance to improve upon it, like Final Fantasy. You know, I know that there's the story that, you know, it was the last game and it's the last big hope for Squaresoft. But once that game proved to be somewhat successful, they were like, okay, now that the system is going to get more powerful, do the shit that you wanted to do. Because you could see that there was, like, this germ of an idea here, and it was going to grow into something.
It's the Evil Dead argument. The Evil Dead 2 is the Evil Dead that Raimi wanted to make if he had some more money.
Right.
And then the current Evil Dead remake is the movie that he wanted to make if everybody didn't think his horror movie was funny.
Yeah, pretty
Yeah,
much.
pretty much.
And yeah, I'll always respect Final Fantasy for that, is that they don't make the same game twice, typically speaking. If there's another numbered Final Fantasy game, it's going to be pretty different from the previous one. And, you know, I tip my hat to them for that. But
yeah, they don't iterate. But yeah, like, I think Comix Zone is just that type of game. And today could be... it's not like people don't like fucking comic book shit right now.
What could be so cool is that it could almost like... I mean, like, I could almost do the... what was the Mario game where you switch from 2D to 3D? Like,
Super
that would
Paper
be so
Mario,
cool. Like,
yeah.
Super Paper, yeah. Like, while you're in each panel, you could have a total 3D world that you interact with, and then when it's time to shoot through the sides or whatever, you press a button and you go back 2D to be able to switch to the next panel. That would be really awesome.
Jump over the gutters into the panels and shit.
Or while you're in a 3D world, you do something to be able to manipulate the flat piece of paper. That would be really rad.
Sort of like what Link Between Worlds does.
Yeah, where you go 2D
like
to go around corners and shit like that. That'd be really awesome.
Okay, all right, ding ding, guys, that's it. I'm drawing the line. We're done.
Yeah, Dean, do it. Take us home.
Well, if you like everything that you heard in the show and want to hear more about these games or figure out where the hell they came from and stuff, you can check out the show notes. It'll also have links to our social stuff and a contact link for our emails. For anything else, we have a bunch of events coming out. South Jersey Geek Fest, Too Many Games, which we'll be doing a panel at, and we'll have all types of tables and shit and panels at the Garden State Comic Fest. I'm not going to list where they are or what date or anything like that. I'll just have that all in the show notes. You'll definitely want to check the show notes. And with that, I'm done talking.
Yes, indeed. And for all that other information, check out geekade.com. That's the website that does this whole podcast. If you're not finding it through there, if you're finding it through other means, go to iTunes, give us positive reviews, love your friends, be excellent to each other. Bill and Ted, great movie. Go watch it. And then play all these games we talked about. And then fun Kickstarters. Yay! That's it. Everybody, thanks for listening. Come back next week when we do the exact opposite side of the coin and talk about games that don't need sequels. And we'll see you then. Have a great night.
Bye. Do you like chai tea?
Oh God, why are we talking about beer? Let's do this.
Do I like what?
Chai tea.
Yeah.
Do you like porters? Style of beer?
I like porterhouse steaks.
Close enough.